And hello, we're back. Much later than planned because of real-life holdups all over the place.
My bad.
Yes, Cyrus, feel guilty.
I do.
He's sobbing.
Yeah, and this is also late for me. It's midnight here at my place, and but I want to get this thing going. So you may, if you watched the previous one, you may remember me and Cyrek. We started looking at this paper, and we're also joined today for a little while by Seda.
Hello.
Why,
I am Center.
Yeah. Why? What brings you here? Why are you interested in this madness?
I like psychology concepts, but also I didn't realize that this is like actual research, which is interesting and applied to that my sister is kind of like in that field, and also like madness. Why? Just understanding why. That's all. Curiosity mostly.
Have
kill
you
me
seen?
someday, don't worry.
Yeah. So you saw the previous stream?
Yeah, I saw most of it.
Okay. What did you think about the content so far? Taking a deep breath.
It's like it makes me realize how those people that made those fake psychology studies where they like did misogyny in the dog parks and got it passed as actual peer-reviewed items, or like actually did Mein Kampf but switched out Jew for men and it got published.
They also switched out National Socialism for feminism.
Yep. See, they like National Socialism.
That was Peter Boghossian, James Lindsay, and Helen Pluckrose. And anyone who's interested in debunking junk science should definitely take a look into their works.
And James Lindsay has a YouTube channel, just so you know.
Oh yes. Very, very fun stuff. On that note, also check out Benjamin Boyce. He's also quite fun. He did some, I think either with Boghossian or with Lindsay. He did some with Lindsay. And when he did streams with Lindsay, the two have a humor that plays off of each other, and it's hilarious. It's this very laid back, quiet, world ripping humor. You just say a couple words in a very calm way, and it's just like the world is falling apart because they struck right into the heart of some nonsense.
Oh, very dry humor.
Yeah, I think that's the word. So today's topic. Where is the button? Here. Oh, this button. So we're getting back at this wonderful, truly magnificent paper from Michael Linden, a German psychologist who is apparently only famous for his idea of PTED, that, as we learned last time, he rediscovered from a psychiatry book from 1915. The paper is from February this year. And he essentially has stated last time in the history part that it is the exact same thing as what was called querulent psychopathy, which means you're delusional, exaggerating, making things up, and you're just complaining for the sake of complaining, which is something that certainly does happen. I've come across it in 10 years of active political work. There are people like that. However, sadly from personal experience, it is usually these types of people who love to gaslight you. They are usually at least narcissistic, have a narcissistic personality disorder, and will claim that you are the one who's the complainer, you are the drama queen, while in reality they are. It's turning the perpetrator-victim narrative around, which is a classic thing that these types of psychological abusers do. And we know from cults of personality, which narcissists naturally build, as well as manifest cults, and also in abuse in, for example, religious groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses, as well as in families when sexual abuse is happening there. Everything's swept under the rug, and the then gaslit victim of the abuse is usually told, it's not so bad, you're just making a fuss, you're making it up, apologize to your abuser and make peace again. There are various reasons why people act this way. Not all of them are active abusers. Some are just too scared of the reality around them, that there are actually bad people in their personal lives that they know. But that's all subtopics. What Mr. Linden is doing here sounds like he is trying to establish a diagnosis which you can label onto practically everyone who ever critiques something, complains, whether that person is is actually delusional or not. In practice, he does not make a difference between that. As we looked at his diagnostic inventory and his criteria, but no, we haven't looked at the diagnostic inventory, the questionnaire that we haven't looked at yet. But we looked at his diagnostic criteria for his PTED, and just like the questionnaire that we may look at at a later point, this stuff is basically everyone who is seriously depressed or is seriously traumatized, objectively traumatized, without being a psychopath, without being a borderline or narcissist. You can just slap this on everyone. And I think that's quite sinister, because all these things here are already mapped out by other disorders, which you should rather do instead of just build a catch-all that you can then slam on everyone. Because that's what the Soviets did. They loved psychologically messing with people. My family has personal bad experience with the Stasi back in the day in East Germany. And then they will just call you insane. Because you can't be critical of the system, because, well, the system is perfect. It's defined as perfect. So if you are criticizing the system, you are clearly delusional, and we must get rid of you since you're insane and thus a danger to society.
Pathologizing basically dissent from the state.
Yes, that's what you can do with this. And I think it's what it will be used for if it is ever properly established.
Because it's not going to get scrutinized the way it should be.
Yeah, and first it would be used in religious groups, of course, where you're complaining about your child abuse. That must just be your you just make that's just your delusion. You're just making it up. You just want to complain about the people here. You are evil. You're bringing up you're giving us a bad name. Oh yeah, enough of the intro. Either the view count is spasming again, or I'm already driving people off with my autism. But we'll get into the meat of it. Last thing to remind of this one is category D. There is no mental disorder in the year before the critical life event, which can explain the symptoms. This way, you're essentially saying, there's the big critical life event that was not deadly, not life-threatening as he says it, but non-life-threatening things can still severely traumatize you, because if you look into how trauma works and how psychological abuse actually works, that stuff is life-threatening. It's just not blunt, physically blunt on the surface, but it is driven by an intent to kill. And we can talk about how that works at a later thing, because I should try to keep the introductions and recaps shorter. Yeah, but you can slam this onto everything. And essentially, he's trying to pathologize, to say that you don't have PT, or at least that's how I've seen it used in practice already. That it's used to say you don't have PTSD, you have this instead. Although at the same time, Linden says that this is is or can be a product of PTSD. And just to write off non-life-threatening situations as common but extraordinary, I find minimizing to the nth degree. Because if we're being honest, and I know these are hard words, rape is not life-threatening. Not necessarily. Not if it's a rape murder. It just destroys your life. It may even destroy your will to live. But the act itself is not life-threatening yet. And by his and I'm going by his definition here, your rape would not, you complaining about your rape would categorize you for this diagnosis instead of proper PTSD or even complex PTSD if psychological abuse follows, which it usually does.
It could be even applied to like car crashes. Like not even one that both people walk away unscathed can still traumatize people, because I had a friend do that and they'd be like, oh, well, you had a car crash at some point, and dismiss it that way. Or they wouldn't call it actual PTSD.
Yeah, but this would just then come up if you wanted to push charges onto the other party that is responsible for the car crash.
Right.
To shut you up, that because you're just making it up because your life wasn't in danger, so go away, you're delusional.
Well, there's also survivor's guilt. Like if you're in a car accident with somebody and you survive, but they don't, even if there was no other car involved, you just hydroplane, for example, off of the interstate and hit a tree and the passenger died, but you survived. You're rattled with the guilt of surviving while they are not.
Mm-hmm.
And that messes people up. I've actually had a few people that had to go get psychiatric help because of that.
Mm-hmm. But he wouldn't consider that PTSD worthy. He would classify under this new convenient definition.
Yeah, when in the case that you have a complaint to raise against some other party, this is basically you hide corruption with this diagnosis. So he's not rejecting that PTSD exists. He's not replacing it, but he's opening up some special nonsense dimension where somebody who complains about the party causing the PTSD or any other relevant or does a crime to you or to your family, you could work on getting justice, defending a family member who was wronged. And he would write that off as PTED because you just keep on fighting against for justice, and he equates that with a thirst for revenge that he also attributes with sadism. I mean, we had this wonderful line last time with I thought did he use smile at some point? Must have. I thought he used smile at some point. No, words not in the page. But the way he wrote that the people take joy from it, take satisfaction from getting even with whoever did the thing, whatever the thing is to them. And that is not the same as justice. Justice and revenge are very different things, and not everyone has a drive, a sadistic drive inside, or which I find scary, to be honest. I have a couple of abusers in my life. I do not think in the least that doing to them what they did to me would help in any way. I don't think they're even capable of being hurt by something like that, because they're psychopaths. You can't hurt them unless with either with something legal or with something physical. And I'm not the type for that, and I guess they know that, and that's why it's so easy to get through with things. And even if I would get into a situation where it would lead to physical violence, whoever would start it, I would not take any joy from that, because I had to with a therapist, I had to play through that scenario, which I already found weird that the therapist wanted me to think that through. The idea repulsed me, and how am I supposed to derive any joy or satisfaction from something that repulses me? It's just strange. Anyway, we stopped at the end of this table last time, the diagnostic criteria that he made up in his chapter on embitterment, how he defines embitterment. And hello to everyone in the chat. Yeah, there's no Smartcast today, so we're free to advertise this on the server. All right. So, next paragraph. Severe embitterment is typically associated with ideations of revenge, aggression, and even homicide. Yeah. He's going right into the.
Well, that's a really wide
level.
net. That's what that is, a really wide net.
Revenge, aggression, and homicide. I mean, aggression can that can be a low level. It can be frustration.
Yeah, like there's a lot of levels that you can say aggression. You can be angrily ranting about something and be like, "Oh, you're acting aggressive right now." Maybe a bit more extreme, that maybe slamming your fist on tables and walls, and that's.
Oh, I've been dealing with narcissists a lot. Sadly, in the mental health department, they shouldn't work in. People who shouldn't work in those professions at all. What we really need to invent is a filter that such people don't even get into these jobs. But for these people, saying no or telling them, "Don't do this, you can't do this," is already a type of aggression to them. Where you're not following their orders is for them aggression, because you're undermining their authority, you're undermining their narcissistic God complex, or whatever it is. Like I had this one woman here, and that was a very, very short thing. Luckily, I've told you I had this my kitchen table. I just had put aside the Warhammer miniatures I had at the time that I had just painted. I put them on the side so we had space on the table. That was more than enough space. It was even behind natural borders, like the laptop that was standing on the side, and some writing implement holders and stuff. And she asked me if she could charge her smartphone. I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." Plug that in, and cable was long enough to put it anywhere on the table. But instead of me just putting it on the table, I gave it handed it to her so she could place it wherever. I mean, maybe she wanted it right next to her in case something is going on. What she did was she put her smartphone right onto my miniatures, on top of them.
No, you don't do that.
Yes. And me being a bit flustered by that, and taking her smartphone and putting it next to that, because the cable was long enough, it could have reached almost to her end of the table.
That's weird.
That made her angry. That she couldn't understand why I was angry, or why I was not why I was angry, why I was flustered and frustrated. Like, why are you doing this? It's because a narcissist has no value for anything that isn't in the ownership of the narcissist. So those things are not. They don't have value to her. They're just trash.
Mm-hmm. Also, wild to get upset that someone touched your phone just to move
Oh
it.
no, she didn't get upset that I touched her phone. That she didn't get upset about, but that I took her phone off my miniatures and told her she can't do that. These are fragile things, and I just painted them.
Wild.
And they even have some psychological value to me, emotional value, because that's the first stuff in, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years where I did something creative. Where I managed to do something creative. I have some mental blocks there that I'm trying to get rid of. It's not just writer's block or something. There's something more than that. Yeah, so that stuff has actual value to me. It's not just random stuff that's lying about. And then it all turned into a discussion of that I shouldn't show my aggression because that is, and she said, spilling over to her, which is the exact formulation that you see in books describing narcissists and their mental health, their mental problems. That they cannot discern between their own emotions and those of others, and those of others therefore spill into theirs. So when you're aggressive, then they become aggressive because
Aggressive.
Because it's the same, or I just perceive you as aggressive rather.
Because assertion can get mixed up a lot, especially I suppose with narcissists and people who don't want to take you seriously. That asserting boundaries is violent.
Oh yes, thank you. Assertion is the word I was looking for. Yeah, because I was asserting boundaries and enforcing them. And narcissists take that as aggression because you're telling them, no, you're not going any further. You're not going beyond this line. And they then get, depending on the style of narcissist, they then get aggressive. This one, she was sneaky. Because we talked about it, and I tried to explain to her that, especially when we talked about some of my background issues of what people did to me, which is bringing up some things, and I need to keep myself together. So I tense up, talk a bit more firmly, but not in an aggressive way, just in an, as you said, assertive way.
Yeah,
things get tense. And you don't want to start. I don't want to start crying around or other things, because then I can't talk anymore. So it's all very strenuous. And and the whole thing went to a point where she wanted me to do other things instead of showing my emotions, because as she said, that was bad for her. And I told her I'm not aggressive towards her, but at the situation that played out, that I'm retelling. I'm frustrated with the people who did this, or let those who did this and those who let it happen. And I'm frustrated about the deeds themselves, not at her who's sitting here, who's supposed to listen to my crap.
You get paid to listen to your crap.
Yeah, exactly. It's her fucking job. And allegedly, she has a psychological training or something.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
And she said it wasn't good for her?
Yes.
Specifically? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, but that's how you know. That's how you. Lots of little things on how you can spot a narcissist. It's all about them. Their emotions matter. Yours don't. You're the patient, but you don't matter. You are not someone with a problem. You are the problem for the narcissist. And it then went to that she made suggestions of because I asked her, well, what should I do instead of letting the emotions out? And I have there's a video by Teramin Trees, who's an ex-therapist. He also talks about on YouTube. He's also talking about bad therapy, and also explains there in a very good video that you need the whole range of emotions in balance. The family of aggression is part of that. Starts with frustration, ends with wrath, but it all has its place. You need to be able to feel these through. Doesn't mean you need to act on them, but suppressing them poisons you inside. And what narcissists do is they command you to have certain emotions and forbid you certain emotions, and that is what psychologically breaks people, and what constitutes narcissistic abuse. But the suggestion she then made was, when I'm angry, I go for a walk.
A therapist?
I'm not sure if she's an actual therapist. It's called ambulant therapy. It's a bit different. It's different from just someone in an office. It's people who come to your home because you really can't go anywhere.
Right.
And she knew that I can't just go out into town, just walk around or just be out on the street, because it's heavily that's so stressful for me, especially when I'm alone, because I have a pretty severe case of this PTSD crap, and yeah, that's its own topic. I don't want to explode the whole topic here, but it's just something I can't just easily do. At this point, I only go outside for important appointments, like having to go to a doctor. I've tried pushing this, but it doesn't work. It doesn't get better, and I'm done with having breakdowns in the middle of town and just walking around like a zombie in pain in broad daylight, or just crashing onto the street because all my muscles cramp up and then give away. That's not fun, at the very least. It's rather undignified. Yeah, and that's why I have certain perks. I have certain disability perks. I can use public transportation for free and have one person for free coming with me. Stuff like that. So this is serious, and she knew that. And then she gives this example. Oh, I just go for a walk. I can't do that, for one. But the last thing was even better. So I said, well, what should I do? And she said, well, you could punch on the table. She wants me to get physically violent. I'm not allowed to show any frustration and pain in my voice, but I'm supposed to punch the table, so that everything so that the table jumps, everything on it jumps. Maybe the something falls off, can break. And she, at that moment when she said that, she had her coffee thermos mug at the edge of the table on her side. So had I done that thing might have fallen onto her. And I don't know whether that was stupidity on her part, or as I've sadly already witnessed, narcissists like that, they put up traps for you so that they can later claim that, I was attacked. And
yeah, it sounds like she wants you to elevate. Like, that's an elevation of aggression, not... Wow.
Yeah, it means I had my aggression under control, and she wanted me to
not be?
escalate.
Why?
Because she's at the very least, because she's an idiot.
The very least, I suppose. I suppose therapy is the best way to get your kicks if you're a narcissist. But damn, like that's so blatant.
Mm-hmm.
It's.
and she was then, after I told her what I told her this. I'm not gonna punch the you want me to get physically violent? And you have your coffee mug at your edge of the table. What if that falls off and you get a hot coffee over you and you have the coffee stains, and then you go home to the office and say, oh, I got this patient is so out of whack, is so out of control, and now I've got all these coffee stains on me and got burns and stuff. Oh, I can't go back there. And that can then escalate further, as you can think. That can go really bad for you as a patient if you believe the nonsense someone like that is saying. Her reaction, however, was that after I told her that, just with the so this could just be stupidity, but it's also it's first off, it's really stupid to tell a patient to get physically violent like that, especially. And I don't know about your coffee mug, but that will either end in an accident or you're setting up a trap, and I'm not buying that. I'm not walking into things like that. Even if it isn't, this is how it plays out. It's irrelevant whether it's intentional or not, because it will play out a certain way. So you don't need to be paranoid and assume bad intent, although with narcissists there often is. But even if this would if this was just happenstance, it would play out the same way as if it was intent. Because that's just the difference with intent is that the outcome that would come from an accident is just put up there for you to walk into it and to provoke it. And yeah, she just got really upset and did the back straightening, put her stuff together, and got up and stalked out and said something like, I am not taking any more of this.
Wild what people will do to
walk
not
out
do their
a
job.
Prussian officer. I'm sorry, you said what?
Oh, I said it's wild what people will do to not fucking do their job.
Lots of people in therapy and mental health, other adjacent mental health jobs, don't actually want to work. I can only speculate as to why they wanted to get into the field. Talked with some students in a faraway university. Very strange answers at times. There are good ones. The best ones usually go into research, so they won't end up in research in therapy.
Yeah.
It's a bit similar to becoming a teacher in Germany. The people who learn to be at university becoming teachers are usually failures at the actual subject, because the teaching qualification is much simpler. And at this point, I fear that studying psychology for therapy purposes, that there may be a similar issue.
Well, it sounds like it's like this paper. It's gaslighting the paper.
Yes, that was what I titled the previous stream. Oh no, it was gaslighting the diagnosis. But yeah.
Oh.
But gaslighting the paper is a good title for the next. I was wondering what to call this one, but yeah,
gaslight. Oh no, yeah, gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss.
Yeah, yeah. So Mr. Linden, our Lord and Savior, assumes that his embitterment is typically associated with revenge, aggression, and even homicide. So all the worst things, like right at the I want to burn the world, everyone must die. I have to rip out the arms of my abusers. No, that's not how most abuse victims think. First, they would just want to get out of the abuse situation. And then some have the courage to push for some justice, some legal ramifications, or rather, more importantly, uncovering the truth and making that known. Because they tend to not want others to have to go through the same thing, or they know of other people who are still going through the same thing. In cult situations, you have exactly that going on. Yeah, I'm just talking for half an hour on the first line. Any more thoughts on that?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. So let's get into his details. Not everybody who harbors aggressive ideation also has feelings of embitterment. Oh, thank you for acknowledging that. Whereas embitterment regularly includes blaming somebody else and having ideas of revenge. This is an interesting sentence. So embitterment regularly includes blaming somebody else. For what? He says for non-life-threatening things. Like any norm that can be petty theft. That can be being screwed over by a contract, or someone messing with your car who should have repaired it instead. Like, is that your fault, or is that the fault of the person doing the bad thing to you?
I think that's what we call tone policing. Is when you get upset, usually, or like aggressive, and then they're like, "Well, you're in the wrong for being upset and being angry." Tone policing, and not the person who actually did the wrong thing.
I have a feeling he's going into he's blaming projection. That this line seems to imply to me that he thinks that you are responsible for something bad that happened to you, but you're blaming somebody else for it. And then also have ideas of revenge. And this combination especially, this includes blaming somebody else and having ideas of revenge. That is something I mostly have experienced with people with borderline personality disorder. I mean, they will even blame you for things that they dreamed.
Oh, the whole, you cheated on me in my dream, and so they punched their boyfriend.
Yes.
Or they get really clingy. There's two sides to it. They either punch the boyfriend or they get real clingy.
To the point of controlling and telling you not to have any friends.
No. Because I've had an ex who had a dream that I cheated on her, and she all day was just holding me.
Oh God, cannot let go.
She thought that she didn't show me enough affection that I would go out and cheat on her.
Now she was suffocating you.
Yeah, that was the thing.
I have this image in my head where you're just climbing the stairs and she's clenched to your leg.
Like a little kid.
Yeah.
Pretty much how it went.
Can I do for you something, baby? Do you want a back massage? Do you want a dick suck? Please don't leave me. Please don't leave me.
YouTube, this is an adult stream.
I hope you marked this not for kids.
I said Doug.
I've marked the channel as not for kids. It would be insane.
Yes. Hey kiddies, would you like to learn about borderline?
No. They have these rainbow fascism channels like Wicked stuff for that.
I mean, kids are basically borderliners anyway before they develop.
Yeah. That's not wrong. It's not wrong.
Before they develop rational thought, yes.
before they learn to distinct between inside and outside objects and dreams and reality.
I was gonna say, well, children haven't developed their empathy yet, and I was like, well, borderliners haven't developed empathy. I suppose the differentiating word is yet.
Yeah. Because children eventually develop it, and narcissists and all the rest of the cluster B, because all of the other things, they all have narcissism as the baseline. They're all emotionally underdeveloped. The scientific term would be retarded. So they don't have empathy. They haven't developed it. It's just some borderliners and narcissists often strike me like they're solipsists. Like they operate as if, so that it's not conscious. And unconscious solipsists, that would be real insanity. But they act as if they are the only consciousness that exists. And everything else is just in their heads, the rest of reality.
Syndrome?
In a way. To my experience, narcissists, despite the different styles, all operate the same, as if they all have this exact same personality. And I think that's because they have never developed actual personalities. Because narcissism is just the baseline social operation interaction stuff. That under immense stress we fall back into because we don't have enough energy or capacity left in our brains for the higher functions, higher operations. So we temporarily fall back into a narcissistic state. That is for self-preservation. That can backfire, of course, because in that state we're assholes. But once the stress is gone, the stressor is gone, people recover and their personality functions work again, which is observable in people who are in narcissistic relationships but are the victim of the narcissistic abuse. It's as if their personalities are suppressed by the immense stress of the narcissist. Also because the narcissist usually wants you to not show certain behaviors, because you're supposed to fit into the exact mold the narcissist wants to control you into. So whether that's a borderliner or a psychopath. But once people are out of that, it takes a week or two and they recharge up into the actual personalities and feel better, operate better, are happier. And just because the stress is gone. It's really interesting. Yeah, so there is a point in getting out of a narcissistic relationship and telling your friends to maybe, I think that person's bad for you because you're acting different. You're worse. You're always out of energy. You're a recluse. You feel like you're sucking the energy out of a room now. All of these things and more. And I'm sorry it's late, so I've more trouble than usual to find the right words. Yeah, but this line it reeks of alleging projection. So the affected individuals do not give in, pursue their cause relentlessly, and show dysfunctional and querulent behavior. I'm gonna be mean and say the affected individuals do not give in, pursue their cause relentlessly, and then the other stuff. Could we say this about Gandhi?
Yeah.
He saw a great injustice.
Same with Martin Luther King.
Yeah. Yeah, and pursued that relentlessly.
Malcolm X. There's a whole bunch of people that pursued justice relentlessly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see,
they weren't necessarily affected by life-threatening events. Oh, sorry, Sada, you said?
Oh, I was saying, but see, their troubles and their injustices are considered valid by the society at large. So that's why it's not pathological for the exact same behaviors they would slap a label on you for are fine from Martin Luther King or.
Okay, then let's bring up another example, like what was it Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the man whose book more or less helped bring down the Soviet Union. That he wrote in 6 different places. So in order that if one place was raided by the KGB, the other manuscripts would still be available. And then he smuggled the book out, which then told about the true atrocities of the Soviet state. He was pursuing justice relentlessly, or rather, not justice, but truth. Because the first thing, and that is for all cases of abuse. The first thing you need to pursue is to uncover truth. In part, when it's psychological abuse, that involves a damn lot of gaslighting and manipulation of people around you. The first thing you desperately need, is to understand why. Why did this happen? Why were the things done that happened? Why do people believe the things they believe now? While you didn't even know most of the stuff, the manipulations in the background were going on, where slander was spread about you to isolate you from everyone. Victims of that kind of abuse, they live in chaos, in mental chaos, because the world doesn't make sense anymore, because it's not supposed to make sense. This kind of abuse is supposed to drive you to suicide. And that is not, on the surface level, it's hard to see that this is really life-threatening, because it's just words. But it's not a sticks and stones thing. It's something serious. And understanding the chaos, you manage by uncovering the truth, by finding evidence of what's going on, by getting third-party looks on it, reality checks from people outside of this whole soup of horror. And only after that, if you want, you can pursue justice. First, you need to understand what the fuck's even going on. And this guy, I would put my hand to the fire for that. I would assume that Linden would even call that already a querulent delusional behavior, which is what gaslighters accuse you of. When you try to find out the truth and even bring up the truth to the general public, or just the public, or rather the public of your social circle, they will call you things like this, like being delusional, being psychotic, and things, all to discredit you and what you have to say. And so dysfunctional behavior, that can be anything. He equates it with neglecting your personal life and stuff, but that is what everything can do that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if he gives us better examples for this. I doubt it, because especially PTSD itself, severe PTSD, that is not the light stuff, because there's PTSD is an actual spectrum. It will greatly affect your daily performance and what you can do. It can easily lead to you losing several daily rituals, because you just don't have the strength anymore. That maybe you can't keep your place tidy anymore as much as you did before, because you don't have the strength, because you have constant breakdowns. You don't sleep enough because you can't. If I recall correctly, he mentioned before. I'd have to check if he mentioned losing sleep, but that is not something you actively do. PTSD can just lead to sleep deprivation because you're in constant hypertension and hypervigilance. That's why you can't sleep, because your body is and brain is constantly on the verge of, I am in threat mode. I am under threat. I am under threat. I am under threat. So you sleep very shortly, even though there is no imminent threat. That's the horrible thing about PTSD, because it's just not leaving your system. And with psychological abuse, well, it's like
It's permanent fight or flight.
yeah. And imagine it's when you're a school kid and you have your constant bullies. Do you want to go back to school? When all that happens, there's bullying. You may not want to go back to school. That would be dysfunctional behavior for him. Complaining about your bullies, querulent behavior. And that's without even the pursuit of justice. Maybe you want that, but it's not because you want to get back at them. It's because you want peace. You want to be left alone. And this is something Linden does not seem to understand. There are people who just want to be left alone. When you have psychological abusers or cult-like abusers, they will come after you anytime you come back out of your shell and back into life. Because these people kind of burn through social circles, go from one to the next to the next. After they're done with one, they go to the next. So they may end up 5 years later, again in a social circle near the one you have finally found some shelter in, and the whole game will start anew. And because they didn't get proven, the abusers didn't get proven the last time, they can now tell, oh, well, if I did something wrong, why was I not convicted? So just they get more credence, and then nobody will look at your counter evidence again, because that's just how the game goes. And this keeps people not trying to get out into life again, and how the horrible people win. If all they need to do is then call you something like this PTED crap, yeah, that's kind of over. Oh, this looks like an interesting sentence. They are often cross-sectionally, that's an interesting choice of words, they are often cross-sectionally misdiagnosed as suffering from a personality disorder. You asshole. You bloody asshole. You're trying to take the wind out of stuff from the get-go. This guy, I thought this guy doesn't understand personality disorders, but maybe he does after all. And just wants to take it out because he knows that if we look at actual personality disorders, we will see that his delusional querulancy will be mostly found in the cluster B personality disorders. If you don't have a cluster B personality disorder, which is narcissism, borderline, histrionic, and antisocial, so meaning psychopath, for example, you're not going to act like this. You may have a legitimate reason to pursue truth and justice, and not for revenge. Because especially the way, especially described a sadistic pleasure. Oh, that was it. Pleasure. Oh, wait, that was the wrong button.
Oh, I have to drop out because I have to go make dinner. But if you're still going, I'll come back on when I'm done.
All right, sure.
Yeah, I'll see ya.
Mm-hmm. Okay, pleasure is also not the word that was in the paper. Yeah, what do you think of this? I mean, I talked about the cluster B personality disorders a lot.
It seems he's setting up something and then backpedaling at the next sentence. It's like he wants to go a little bit further in this, but then doesn't. But he's also trying to distance the term embitterment from the personality disorders to make his claim seem more sound.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't see much of this kind of behavior. As I said, I think I have seen querulent, delusional querulence in my years in politics that did seem to espouse this, but the way I remember them, they all might have fit cluster B personality disorders instead, or at the same time, rather. So I think this is rather a behavior that is mostly found in that cluster of personality disorders. And this is outside the delusional schizophrenic, or what it was, which can also go into this, but that's a special thing. Man, this is evil. I'm just saying it. This is evil. So, goes on. However, the core problem is not querulent troublemaking. Okay, so it's not about troublemaking, but the intense emotion of embitterment. So it's all about this emotional thing, which takes over the whole person in a similar way to anxiety. Oh man. I don't think the people who I've met, well, especially one person whom I've met who believes in this diagnosis, has ever read a paper like this from this guy. Probably heard something just from the professor he was mentioning. So I have more anxiety issues than anything like this. I'm not bitter about this shit, because I couldn't do anything. Just the thing with PTSD is that you're mainly in pain, and it ends up in physical pain. If you mistake that for embitterment, then you don't fucking know what you're talking about in regards to PTSD or psychological pain or emotional pain. It's the same thing. Which wouldn't surprise me, because as I said last time, the paper reads to me like written by a narcissist who projects his shortcomings onto the whole of humanity.
It sounds like this person is projecting their own inadequacies on everybody else and trying to claim it as a psychological diagnosis for everybody else except themselves.
Yeah, I think this, so the problem of this thing, despite being the same, as he says, the same as querulent delusion, delusional querulency, is not the querulent troublemaking. So it's not the complaining, and thus it's not the pursuit of justice either, but it's just the emotion of embitterment. What? Even with the querulent, the querulence I had I saw in that party, I can't say that for sure that they were like that or gave off that vibe. There was a tendency to that, like it's more like constant frustration. It was constant frustration with them, but not embitterment. The people I noticed to be constantly bitter were narcissists with megalomaniacal tendencies, like top tier Dunning-Kruger cases, that wanted their positions of power. They wanted their cakes and eat them too. And they rejected and against criticism, against any criticism, they reacted with embitterment, I would say. So that's the narcissists who reacted with embitterment against people who pointed out the obvious flaws, like what's the name in English for that not fairy tale, fable maybe? Because in Germany we call most things fairy tales, Märchen. Where with the king and his new clothes, where he's just naked and there's only the little girl pointing at him like, hey, he's naked. And the king, being the narcissist who has to buy into the scamming tailor that he is actually wearing clothes, and only virtuous people can see the clothes, but he wasn't actually wearing anything. So, but since he had to play the part of course I'm a virtuous person, so of course I can see the clothes, they're magnificent. As a child that points out that no, he's actually naked. Maybe it's not the best example. Sorry if I keep repeating. It's maybe doing it so late is not the best thing.
I mean, I like doing late streams. You may have seen the ones that I've done where it goes on for 6 hours.
Yes, long streams are not the problem. It's the end of the day.
Well, I started,
and this is not just fun talks. Fun talks at this time are not the problem.
Yeah,
this is rather.
It's
tough
just
stuff.
This is tough. This is tough to get through because I want to know more, but at the same time, I just, the paper keeps going, and the further it goes, I just feel more and more apathy towards it.
I think it's. I think it requires every line a pause.
ELAP.
Yes. I thought about calling it that. Okay. The term PTED therefore describes the problem better than querulent delusion. Okay, so he's just renaming the thing. He just tries to rename querulent delusion.
Why?
But he said it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. So why rename it?
It's the same thing, but different.
Oh, I know. He wants to have his name as the figure.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's already been discredited years ago.
Has it?
Well, from what the history portion said is the querulent delusions was discredited as it could be a variety of people. It could just be normal behavior. That's what I remember from the history portion of this.
Okay, I just took from it that he doesn't distinct between pathological and non-pathological people.
Yeah, because normal people can have querulent delusions, but at the same time they won't act upon them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why he focuses it all on the embitterment. Just on the emotion itself instead of the actual behavior. I don't know. Oh God, this is. I have a feeling he's playing some salesman tricks here. I need more caffeine. All right. Next paragraph. An unanswered question in need of further investigation is whether there's also a complex PTED. You fucking bastard. So he's writing on the term of complex PTSD, which is comprised of several and prolonged traumatic events, which you usually get from psychological abuse, from narcissists, borderliners, psychopaths, from gaslighters, so to say, from cultish abuse. That's what gives you complex PTSD, and including children who got sexually abused in such cults, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, all say the psychological abuse was worse. I'm guessing he is just riding on their term. Let's see where he goes with this. Which is not caused by a single, but rather a sequence of humiliating events or the same situation persisting for example, and yes, as he said, analogous to complex PTSD. Yeah, it just seems to me like he wants to replace PTSD and complex PTSD with his PTED in the long run.
That's what it's seeming like.
Because a long sequence of humiliating events, if they are that is psychological abuse, if that is objectively the case, it will be complex PTSD and not PTED. If you're actually traumatized by it, because he's calling it post-traumatic embitterment disorder. So it's and post-traumatic stress disorders, you have the stress in the first place. And now he's talking about a severe form of embitterment, which is in itself a strong emotion of stress. His extra distinction, I don't see it making sense anywhere. And if your actual actions upon it are not relevant, and it's just about this one specific emotion, what's the point of this classification? Is it just to try to get, because it looks to me like he just wants to display the person who gets this as not being an actual victim of something, of a crime, of abuse, but instead as, well, through the delusion being in some way mentally ill, not in a wounded way, in an objectively wounded way, but in a narcissistically wounded way. Because a narcissist will take offense to things that aren't actually relevant, or that are even just criticism.
Mm-hmm.
A narcissist will always feel humiliated by objective criticism. Someone who is emotionally mature will not. Objective criticism is fine for someone who's emotionally mature. But gaslighting, that will tear someone who's emotionally mature apart. It will tear almost anyone apart. Man, I don't see how this stuff makes sense. So it is also assumed, but not yet scientifically proven, that there are embitterment-prone personalities. Okay? That's why I brought in the personality disorders. But he rejects the personality disorders. Okay. In exemplary, people who tend to feel insulted and react with embitterment, even due to minor causes, similar to anxious personalities. Yeah, this is called emotional immaturity, also known as narcissistic personality disorder, you hack. You bloody hack. Like, I would suggest, if you're interested in that, especially try to read up in particular about covert passive-aggressive narcissism. That is the narcissism that most acts like this, and since it is covert, it is as of yet the most under-researched style of it. There is it's right behind me. What's her name? Debbie Mirza wrote a very good book about this. I especially recommend this to targets of narcissistic abuse. She is not a trained psychologist, but she is damn good in analyzing the topic. Like, I would recommend this book even to trained psychologists, because they're usually it's like with your general physician. Your general physician knows about a wide range of topics, but isn't a specialist in any. My God, he's describing a narcissistic personality disorder. What he just calls embitterment-prone personalities. Yeah, that's a disorder, you idiot. it could well be that some of the individuals who complain about recent embitterment-provoking experience fall into this category. What is this pseudo-scientific crap? So what was number 9? I just want to check on the reference list. Oh, he refers to his own paper. Linden M. Rotter M. Spectrum of Embitterment Manifestations. Psychological Trauma 2018. So he's just referring to himself here.
Yep. I'm not surprised.
I'm speechless. I am fucking speechless. You know, I'm just coming into this whole psychology, psychotherapy topic from the side, mostly out of self-defense and due to lack of therapists in the first place. So I have to read up on the shit to find answers and ways to out of this and to deal with this that work for me. And I've had a few good ones. Sadly, either they were so old that they were just short of retirement, or just went into what's it called? Forgot the word again. Motherhood vacation, maternal leave, right? And that can be quite long in Germany. And these types, the good ones, you can say, oh, you're just cherry picking. If you believe that if you want. And they've told me I know way more about these topics than they do, and they've learned stuff from me, which I found. Well, it's a wonderful compliment. You can accuse me of trying to pat my own back here. At the same time, try to see this from my perspective. I'm looking for a therapist who's going to help me with this severe PTSD crap. And then the therapist tells me that I know more about it than the therapist. Who's going to help me? That's the problem. So the compliments are nice, but they're not helping me for a solution to get the therapy for this that I need. And for example, EMDR therapy works wonders with severe PTSD. It's going through hell, but in a controlled fashion, but there's at least an end to it. The problem is that the therapists who offer EMDR therapy usually only do it for low to, at best, low-medium severity. Because after that, the patient will have quite severe breakdowns during the therapy, and that is often emotionally too much for the therapist because they're just frail little flowers. It's like the comparison I bring up is that it's like the happy little girls who went through school, never got bullied, always got A+, and always had friends, and then got out of school and into university, and daddy and mommy paid for all the bills and the pony, and they just want to help people, so they study therapy, or let's say want to become veterinarians. Yay! And then they get into an operating room where there's currently being operated on a horse, and the guts are everywhere, and there's blood everywhere. And they barf onto the floor and go, oh God, nightmares. I think it's the same with, and they never want to do it again, but I've committed to this not so much now. And I think there's a similar thing with the I'd say naive and immature therapists that think, oh, I'm going to help people now. But they've never went through hell themselves, any sort of hell. And then they peek through the keyhole of your life, into your demons that plague you. And they get terrified. Even just at the smaller ones where you already say, oh yeah, that happened. And you can just talk about it like it's the weather report and it's it's just an annoying, boring old story to you. This young, naive, inexperienced therapist will then think, or the emotionally immature narcissistic therapist will just go, "Oh my God, this is so horrible. I can't imagine this is supposed to be real. I want to go away. Make the patient go away." That kind of therapist won't be able to help you, especially with some hard therapy. They will pretend to listen for a while, but they won't actually hear what you're saying. They will just suppress it right away. It's some I strike me that they're so stiff and so tense that they strike me as if the job of the psychotherapist is a traumatizing experience to them. If that makes any sense, which is kind of ironic. Yeah, more tangents with Wisp.
Your tangents are great, though.
Yeah, the view counter was at 0 for half an hour. But then it's just doing random things. Like last time, there were people chatting in the chat, and the view count was also 0. It was very strange.
The YouTube view count doesn't really update it properly.
Mm-hmm. Well. Where was right the yeah right reference 9 he's self-referential again. Next paragraph. There is an ongoing discussion on how to delineate embitterment from personality disorders. References 12 to 14. Okay, you want to make a bet? These are 3 references. How many of them will be his own papers?
I think you said like in the I think it was up to 14.
No. He's referencing. He's just citing references 12 to 13. So 12, 13, 14. I'm mispronouncing numbers. No checking.
Nope.
Just say a number between 1 and 3.
And the number between 1 and 3?
Yeah, how many papers is he that he's referencing for this sentence contain his name?
I'm gonna say 2.
Okay, let's check. On paper 12. Oh, Lee, Kim, exposure to negative life events and post-traumatic embitterment symptoms in young adults in Korea.
Okay.
13. Dodek, Barnoff, personality as risk and resilience in embitterment reactions. Embitterment Vienna, 2011. Okay. And Blom, Tomais, Bilsmia, Genen, embitterment in patients with a rheumatic disease after a disability pension examination.
So 0. The number was 0.
Yes. Now we do the mean trick. How many of these names come up several times? Where is Lee? Okay, there must be in other things. Lee does not come up again. Kim. Twice.
It's in another thing.
I guess it's in this thing some. Yeah, it's in here.
There. It's just the books. It's the related articles.
I would like to kill this frame here. Okay. Dodek A. Dodek Aida. It's just 1. Barnoff. Just 1. I am surprised. Oh, Blom D. Worked with these people again on something, and there seems to be another team working on this. Doesn't have a direct thing. Yeah, it's just him. I am surprised.
I'm surprised he didn't reference himself again.
Yeah, maybe it's students of his. They're working independently on the same thing, but this seems to be a group of people. Would be interesting to afterwards just do a relationship graph between all of these. You can relatively easily do this with tools like GraphViz. It's GraphViz. Otherwise, there's probably tools in LibreOffice and stuff, but I never found them. Never. One day I will just, maybe I sit down and just binge videos on these Office software things, just to have it done. Because I find it very frustrating to try to make documents and I need this other tool to know, and I haven't done it yet. I think it's a life skill nowadays. Just sit down and binge tutorial videos about basic software use. You never know when you need it, and then you have at least a broad basic understanding of what they can do and how and what you can make with them. And even if you forgot something, you know what it can do. No, I just need to look this up again. Back to the text. So this is undoubtedly also in need of further research. The clinical impression is that there is no special type of personality before the onset of the disorder. But didn't he just say the opposite before?
Yep.
He said it is assumed that there are embitterment-prone personalities here. And a paragraph later, he says, the clinical impression is that there is no special type of personality before the onset of the disorder. I'm getting a headache. All personality types are at risk when individual core values and basic beliefs come under attack. Yeah, that's normal human behavior, man. That people get upset when you question their basic beliefs and values and stuff. Whether you're conservative, whether you're religious, not religious, what your ethics are, whether you believe in socialism or not. What the hell? 15. What's 15? Responses of traumatic life events, an unjust world or an uncaring world. Social justice research. From 1994. Okay. Some of these resources might be interesting to look at some other point in time. Wanted to keep this a surprise. But let's just for completionist's sake. How often does social justice research come up here? 4 times. There are 4 papers that explicitly are categorized as social justice research, which means socialism.
They really, really like the social justice.
And this is an interesting thing coming together, where socialism and Catholicism find an overlap, because he's a practicing Catholic who's working for a Catholic foundation. You know, the church that has a child diddling problem. I wonder why. For some, this may have to do with their family. For others, their career. For others, money, etc. What? All personality types are at risk when individual core values and basic beliefs come under attack. For some, this may have to do with their family, career, or money. What? You have to help me. How does this make sense? How do these lines, these sentences, how do they connect?
I don't know.
You sound like you're in pain.
I am in pain because this makes no sense.
When your core values come under attack, then you can become embittered and be a delusional querulant. Wait, your core values and basic beliefs come under attack, and because of that fact, you are delusional. That when you complain about it. I think this is if you put these parts together, it again reveals what he's really after here. That you have to accept what you are being told.
Yep. That's what it seems like.
Just roll over and take it. A difficult diagnostic problem also arises when PTD occurs concurrently with other mental disorders. People with personality disorders are often the target of unjust and humiliating behavior. You
What?
fucking asshole. No, they're not the target of unjust and humiliating behavior. They are the perpetrators of unjust and humiliating behavior. So at least if we're talking cluster B. Cluster A is more of a well, that's the actual delusional stuff like schizophrenia. But cluster C would be the more how do I put this together? Let's just let me look that up again for a refresher, because I rarely look into these. No, not Healthline. Healthline is a scam site. Cluster C, avoidant, dependent, obsessive, compulsive. Yeah, they're not actively abusive. They're usually these cluster C is that's the anxious cluster. Those I could see being rather the targets or the products of psychological abuse, usually coming from the B cluster, labeled as dramatic, and the cluster A includes paranoid, schizoid, and schizotypal, summed up as the odd cluster. And there are psychological dynamics, psychobehavioral dynamics between the personality disorder clusters. Like as I said, cluster B is usually the aggressor. Cluster B is more the target or the receiver of the abuse. Not always, and of course this then maladaptive behavior in the nicest sense can of course be extremely troublesome and damaging to the surroundings as well, but not as much as the cluster B behaviors. And Wikipedia's classification system is completely nonsensical anyway. So back to this thing. I also see so while autists can be narcissists, but not necessarily need to be, they're sometimes misdiagnosed as each other. In my experience, they are especially prone to cluster B abuse. That's due to how they function, because they're highly logical, they're highly always looking for internal consistency. And cluster B personalities disorders tend to lie and gaslight, which is it's disruptive to anyone's mind. To the autist, I think it's just super effective, let's say. Yeah, so these dynamics are going on, but Mr. Linden, he's turning it upside down. What's happening? What was it here? People with personality disorders are often the target of unjust and humiliating behavior. You fucking asshole. This guy either has never met a narcissist, borderliner, or psychopath, or he is one and is trying to deflect every possible critique from himself. Because what I've noticed narcissists doing, and the rest of the cluster B, is they may not actively ally with others of their type, of their cluster, or within their personality disorder, unless, of course, there's a common goal. But when you bring up criticism about towards, for example, a narcissist, about another narcissist, by merely describing the behavior of that other narcissist, the narcissist you're seeking help from, that you don't know is a narcissist, will listen to it, but then will try to make excuses, will gaslight you, and will even join forces with that other narcissist. Because the narcissist finds him or herself reflected in the horrible behavior you're describing, and therefore understands, I need to excuse these behaviors so that I am not uncovered. So I have to protect the atrocities of the, to me, unknown narcissist so that I am not found out. And the same happens with borderliners, with psychopaths. Imagine you are during a breakdown because you saw a prior abuser of yours, and you take comfort in someone's arms and tell of what that horrible person has done and is doing to people and how that person manipulates others. And then it turns out, because you didn't know, that the person who was offering an ear, who was offering a hug, is the exact same way. And that person, you just told everything that person does as well, which means that person now knows you are aware of these bad pattern behaviors and you could identify them. So that person will now also target you while defending your prior abuser. They need to be of the same kind. They need to have done the same kind of atrocities. And narcissistic behavior is found all over the B cluster. So it can really backfire. And fucking hell. Fucking hell. I have to reread this again. People with personality disorders. So here comes the next joke. Since I did full-scale differential diagnostics, those have proven that I don't have a personality disorder. To my happiness and also confusion. I thought I might have some avoidance stuff, for example, but no, it's just the natural levels. It's just, oh God, he's just going back and forth whether people have personality disorders for this or not. God, I just want to scream. Schizophrenic patients experience their delusional persecution as unjust and a breach of their trust. Okay, you're talking about schizophrenia. That's cluster A, and that is actual. Schizophrenics are delusional. They are. That's the whole thing about schizophrenia. having delusions, or even hallucinations. This shouldn't even be in here. Also, it's not necessarily delusional persecution. That would be paranoid schizophrenia, not just schizophrenia. Differences, nuances, dude. Do your words mean things. Write your sentences like an adult, please.
He won't. He won't. He will continue warping the language to fit the end that he wants. And it's to get rid of other real diagnoses, to push this.
This is just spaghetti. Like if you put this into code needs to be a logical thing that doesn't contradict itself. Otherwise, you get problems. If you put this into code, it would not. God, I'm getting old. It would not work. It would not compile. And the breach of trust thing, breaching someone's trust in general, that is something that does intense damage to someone's core, to someone's, if you want to call it, soul. A breach of trust is what causes emotional damage, and doing enough of that and doing it consistently and consequently in a targeted fashion, that is what breaks people. That is what gaslighting is for. To facilitate exactly that. And he just writes it off as, oh, it's breaking your trust. Oh, that's a normal thing. That just happens. Don't be offended. Like, no. This is a Catholic. I don't know if you're familiar with Dante's Inferno, which is technically Christian fan fiction. Yeah, are you familiar with Dante's Inferno?
No, I am not familiar with this.
Okay, in Dante's Inferno, describes the circles of hell, and as concentric circles that go down into an abyss, and at the center, the deepest circle of hell, at the center, there is the devil encased in ice, and in its mouth, the devil has, this is reserved, and the deepest circle of hell is reserved for the greatest sinners, which are betrayers, backstabbers, people who breach your trust. That story considers it the worst of sins, and that's why in the center there's the devil encased in ice. And in its center mouth, it is holding Judas Iscariot, the guy who backstabbed Jesus. Because because he betrayed the best man, he is considered to be the worst man, deserving of the worst punishment. And this Catholic here is just writing off our breach of trust, which is betrayal. That's just a thing. Don't be upset. Don't pursue justice for that. What are you? God. So these are risk factors for the development of comorbid PTED and require a thorough differential diagnosis. So while before he says that personality disorders are not relevant, then he says they are relevant. Then he says they make you prone. Like, this is insane. And he gets it. He's completely the wrong way around with people with personality disorders. That sentence is so insane. People with personality disorders are often the target of unjust and humiliating behavior. It's the other way around. Like even a paranoid schizophrenic, because of his or her delusions, is hurting the people around himself. And this is the relevant thing. Is what's happened to you objectively true or not? And if it's objectively true, how can you say that the need, not just the pursue, but the need to repair the world, to uncover truth, is in any way pathological and bad? Because he's implying that getting criminals behind bars is a bad thing. And especially since he tries to also equate it with complex PTSD, that means there's repeated behavior. And if that is objectively true, then you have repeat offenders you're dealing with. Maybe you want to examine that. Maybe you want to take these people out of society for a while and check out whether they have actual personality disorders of relevance that are prone to criminality, like antisocial behavior disorder, like borderline personality disorder. Because those people cannot be treated from what we know so far. Last paragraph. Embitterment is an emotion that is distinct from other negative emotions and mental disorders. Okay. Depressed mood is a melancholic and anhedonic emotion. An anhedonic emotion, that sounds like an oxymoron. Anhedonic means lack of emotional response. Correct me if I'm wrong or inaccurate.
There's two different forms of anhedonic.
Mm-hmm.
There's the social, where you don't want to spend time with anyone. And the physical, you don't enjoy physical sensations such as hugs, your favorite foods tasting bland, and even loss of sex appeal.
Yeah, but that's not an emotion.
No, but
rather the lack of it.
Yeah, it's social and physical anhedonia.
Yeah, and the lack of an emotion is not an emotion. I don't think this guy knows what words mean. So depressed mood is blah, 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 accompanied by reduced emotional modulation and a feeling of emotional numbness and non-reactivity. Yeah, that's what anhedonia is, you idiot. So it's not accompanied by that. You just said anhedonic. That means already this. If this is supposed to be a scientific paper, why do you need to bloat your sentences? Do you need to get above a certain word count or something? Embitterment, in contrast, is a full and explosive emotion. Okay, I don't know. I have no experience with that. Especially so if you have actual PTSD and there are abuses involved, like severe complex PTSD, whatever, you may have if you want to call it, explosive emotional reaction, or you can rather, because you are suddenly in the actual threat situation. But that is also a justified emotional reaction. Most people just go tense and again into shock. So when PTSD can mostly happens when you're in a situation that requires fight or flight, and it's not used in English, but in German. But in English, I've seen that you say fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah, fight, flight, or freeze is what we use whenever it comes to adrenaline.
Yeah, and the thing is, the freeze reaction. Maybe it's a new thing, but it's I haven't heard it yet in German. The freeze reaction is a shock response, so
Yeah.
it's part of the fight flight thing. But the moment you have the shock response, the freeze, that's the thing that can lead you to developing PTSD, because you don't know what to do. You can't run, but fighting is out of the question as well for some reason, and thus you're stuck. And this being stuck, you can't do anything about the threat. That is what causes PTSD, or is, as I said, a likely very, very strong contributor. And this then can happen again if you are stuck with the abuser again. If you have processed somewhat, you may be able to take some action, and that can end in a Thunderdome situation, which usually then leads to the former abuse victim to be seen as the abuser that the actual abuser is trying to paint the victim as. This is a special situation. You don't have these random full explosive emotions. That's what I would attribute to borderline personality disorder, for especially, because they are emotionally dysregulated like mad. Okay, and with them I can attribute this embitterment thing the most, out of the blue at least, gut feeling thing. So embitterment is different from panic and anxiety. So I usually have panic reactions, and the other thing, and I don't even know how to feel about just blurting this out on the internet, which are characteristic to PTSD. Thank you. Anger or blame can occur with or without embitterment. Oh, it's a true sentence. Depending on feelings of injustice or humiliation. What is the extra sentence? How does this? Anger or blame can occur with or without embitterment, depending on feelings of injustice or humiliation.
That
so only okay. So from the logic he's given us so far, so at least he admits that anger and blame can occur without embitterment, because that would be objectively good situations. But when he says depending on feelings of injustice or humiliation, by what he said so far, his logic would be that if you have feelings of injustice or feel humiliated, that then you are embittered. Always. Then your anger and blame is always a product of embitterment and therefore delusional.
I don't understand.
Me or him?
Him. I understand you. I don't understand him.
Just checking. Okay, that's reference 18. A theory of blame. Psychological inquiry, probably. Okay, it's not a paper by him for once. Hopelessness is seen in embittered people, but can also occur without an aggressive undertone. Yeah. Okay. Especially if you get let down by all the support systems in your social circles, in your family, in the things that should be helping you, like the mental health system, like the justice system. Yeah, the hopelessness grows and grows and grows, and eventually can lead to suicide. That's a bad thing, because it's just neglect built on neglect built on neglect. So it's all about aggression. Aggression is bad. That seems to be one of his main lines. Aggression is bad. So what if someone is aggressive towards you? Is that person delusional? And then if you react in an aggressive manner because you have to defend yourself, then you are delusional too? Is that his logic? Anyway, he goes on. An interesting question is, to what degree moral injury, oh God, this sounds like a nonsensical term. Can you look that up if that comes up anywhere? Moral injury.
Moral injury?
Yeah. Because what I'm saying is that he is mistaking his delusional querulancy for narcissistic injuries. When narcissists are feel injured, feel slighted, they react like this.
Moral injury is from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, so a trusted site. PTSD, National Center for PTSD. Moral injury is when someone does something that goes against their beliefs. This is often referred to an active commission, and when they fail to do something in line with their beliefs, that is often referred to as an act of omission. Individuals may experience betrayal from leadership, others in positions of powers or peers, that can result in adverse outcomes. Moral injury is the discerning psychological, behavioral, social, and sometimes spiritual aftermath of exposure to such events. It can also occur in response to acting or witnessing behaviors that go against an individual's values or moral beliefs, such as being in Iraq and having to protect everybody at the base from a suicide bomber that you really, really don't want to shoot because it goes against your moral values.
Well, having to fight child soldiers, that will cause PTSD very quickly in soldiers.
It's why most soldiers have PTSD, is because they've had to do something they really, really didn't want to. Mm-hmm. One of my high school teachers, she was in the Gulf War, and she was stationed at a military base, and she was on watch, and there was this family that came in all the time into the base because they would give out foods and everything else to the civilians, because war zone, you had to take care of the civilians.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one day they were acting really, really strange, and only the son was coming up and the mother was staying back. And she told the son to stop and that the son needed to come with his mother, but he just kept on going. And she noticed a bulge in his shirt, and she had to make the decision to go against her morals of shooting him or having multiple people inside the base die.
Oh God.
Yeah.
A friend of mine had an issue with one in his company that went bonkers, and yeah, that also caused lots of other soldiers lots of issues. And yeah, it's just horrible. And Linden, Mr. Linden, our Lord and Savior, is raising the question whether moral injury, like the things we just talked about, and that is betrayal by leadership forcing you to do things that are immoral, and you could call upon this the East German regime's order to the border guards to shoot fleeing East Germans who are fleeing to West Germany. As that, because that is an unethical crime that is unethical, that is a crime against humanity, and that causes a moral injury that causes very likely PTSD. We know of Mauerschützen, the wall shooters, that deliberately aimed off. And there's a particular story of one who deliberately aimed off, but his gun was so skewed that the bullet hit, and he is, because he wanted to shoot away, he wanted to miss, but that the bullet hit anyway, that really did a number on him too. But to our Mr. Linden here, these people then developing PTED from that would mean that these are just insubordinate soldiers who are just delusional querulants, who just don't conform to the system. They should just roll over and accept the unjust orders and don't take issue with it. I find this horrible. So to finish the sentence, an interesting question is to what degree moral injury is related or different from embitterment reactions, as this is a disorder also caused by violation of one's basic beliefs, according to Mr. Linden. I don't think this guy understands how humans work. You okay there?
Yeah.
What do you think of this last part? And I'm glad you looked up the term.
Mhm.
I didn't think it had this wide a meaning.
Which the last part, like the last line where it says 19 at the end, or
Yeah, just the last sentence.
an interesting question as to what degree moral. Well, I mean, we already just pointed out that moral injury creates PTSD, or is one of the factors of PTSD in some people. And it being embitterment, I don't know anyone that has had moral injury that would feel bitter towards the situation that they were in. I mean, they would feel, what's the proper word I'm looking for? They would feel as if they were doing the right thing at the time because they had to do what they had to do. But at the same time, they feel upset because of the loss that came with it.
You also mentioned bad leadership orders that force you to do things that you don't, that are not just.
Yes. And fun fact, with the U.S. military, anything that is considered unjust is an illegal order, and you can choose to ignore it.
Cool.
That came about after World War II.
Yeah, I would assume that the order in question would then be examined.
Yes. So the order would, if you consider it unjust, you would then contact a higher up than your chain of command. So if you are in a big division of people, you would go to the command. You would go to the command officer and bring up this complaint that you feel this is unjust, and they would make a decision, and then they would also talk to higher ups than them that would be over the entire area, and even the higher ups over that branch of the military itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would make a decision if it's just or unjust. And usually, if it requires something that would break the code of conduct of war, as it were, with the Geneva Convention, they totally say that it is a illegal order.
Mm-hmm. I could see people getting embittered, in quotation marks, if you are forced to follow through with an unethical order, like take the moral injury, and by complaining, you instead just get persecuted. I could see that making you bitter in some way. But that's kind of it. And even then, the bitterness would be justified, and not like Mr. Linden, who is claiming that it's all delusional. And this is where my big problem with him lies. Any big despotic regime will be happy to take up this diagnosis and slam it onto every critic of the system, anyone who is disobeying orders, and just anyone who has been abused by that system, and quite in the worst sense possible, and tries to speak up about it, because just the speaking up about it will lead to getting this slammed onto you. That's what I would get. So this next paragraph is a bit shorter. Not paragraph, chapter. It's how he measures embitterment. He starts with the Byrne embitterment inventory is an 18-item self-rating instrument. It must be a different one than I found. For the assessment of embitterment as a state or personality trait. It relates to general attitudes towards the world and general beliefs. For example, faults are criticized, but commitment not honored. What? Faults are criticized, but commitment not honored. It just sounds like a you issue. It sounds like mainly a narcissist's problem. And covers the 4 dimensions: emotional embitterment, so the thing he made up; activity-related embitterment, so more embitterment; pessimism and hopelessness; and misanthropy and aggression. Holy shit. Now that is number 20. That is someone, Mr. Snodge Byrne, embitterment inventory. Hans Huber.
There's no link to it either.
Yeah, that's a bit bad. I would like to see this inventory, because what they use currently is a 19-item inventory, and that is just absolute retarded. It's mainly just asking about symptoms of PTSD and depression, and has 2 questions about whether you feel whether you want to enact revenge and would feel satisfaction from doing so, from doing the things to whoever slighted you, what they did to you. And this is what the fuck's this for? It's nonsense. So he goes on. Reactive and event-related embitterment can be assessed with the post-traumatic embitterment disorder self-rating scale, available in different languages. This is the thing he made. This is what I just talked about.
You once again, don't self-rate yourself.
These things are usually done in interviews, these kinds of tests.
Usually, but if you go and do it yourself, you don't.
Yeah, the thing with these things is, don't self-diagnose with stuff like this. That will end badly. There are lots of these kinds of questionnaires where you will get the meaning of the question wrong because they're ill-formulated, bad choice of words, and you may not even know what specific terms relate to. Like when a borderline questionnaire asks you about, do you feel empty sometimes? The emptiness a borderliner feels is nothing compared to what someone who does not have that disorder will ever even remotely experience in life. And for borderlines, it's also a 24/7 thing.
Yeah.
And for normal people, it's just I had a bit of a downtime at like 20 years ago. It's not feeling empty. It's not that.
Yeah, no. So I've felt down. I felt what's the word I'm looking for? Wisp.
Depressed?
Disinterested.
Yeah.
Disinterested in things that I used to enjoy, but only for a short period of time because it was just a mood I was in. I was just in a funk. And once I got out of that funk, I was fine. And the way that I got out of the funk was I just let it pass. What is this?
I'm just looking if the
it's the
self-rating scale is there in English, but it's only the abstract. Is there more to this? Similar articles cited by full text sources, Wiley. Dude, I don't just want the abstract. To get that in the... Do I need to buy this crap? Okay. Yeah. Paylog. It's great. 48-hour online access for $12. Yay. Fuck off. So I have seen the this inventory in English. In German, I mean, in German. But I can, for next time, I can look it up if I can find it in English. Then we can go through that. It's as I just described. So the introductory statement refers to memories of a specific critical incident. During the last years, there was a severe and negative life event. And what he leaves out here is that it is a non-life threatening life event, which is quite questionable, with especially psychological abuse that is there in order to get rid of you, and that means by all means necessary. Which is then followed by statements such as, that hurt my feelings and caused considerable embitterment. I would say even any form of abuse can cause that, physical and psychological. And since it can be, I brought up the case, the issue of sexual abuse. I can believe that will have hurt your feelings and cause you considerable embitterment. And then you may answer that with, Well, it's very true that hurt me. Extremely true. So we will get a 3 or 4 out of this 5-point rating scale. 5-point rating scales are fairly common with these things. And he says a mean total score of 1.6 is seen as a differentiation point for elevated embitterment. 1.6 already?
Yeah, it's a scale of 1 to 5.
Wow.
So,
0 to 5.
0 to 5. Yeah. You would think it'd be like maybe a 2.3. You would think.
Yeah, but, and 2.5 is an indicator of clinically relevant embitterment. And when we're going to look at this inventory, so I had it here in. Oh yeah, here is. No, that's not it. Is it this one? Yeah. Here I have it in German. That's the. Yeah, here's the German version. So I can look up the English one later. I don't know if the whole. Oh! Look, I can hit the English button. There's an English button, but it's not available in English. Only the abstract is available in English. That's sad. You bloody cunt. Okay, I will translate this next time into English. Leave the German on here, or rather you can, if you're interested, you can then make a screenshot of this to keep it. It's these 19 questions. And there's only 2 of them that ask for revenge crap. That is, number 6. In the past years, I had a severe life thingy happening that gives me thoughts of revenge. That makes me have thoughts of revenge.
I understand.
Even if you have that, who would be so stupid to have
9% of the words.
What, did you learn German at some point?
High school.
Oh, okay, cool. Then you can totally verify whether I'm speaking the truth.
I understand 9% of the words that are on screen right now. So not a very good memorization of the language.
Oh, okay. 13 is the other one. It's only 6 and 13 that ask for this embitterment revenge stuff. So 13 asks that gives me feelings of satisfaction by thinking the perpetrator would go through something similar. Like, that's just eye for an eye revenge crap. That's just super. Like a rape victim doesn't wish for the abuser to be raped, for the rapist to be raped. It's bullshit. Or at least gets happy with that, like gets satisfaction from that. This rather sounds like sadism to me. And all the other ones, they're mostly things with about PTSD and depressive symptoms. So if you have hard PTSD, you will answer most of these with, at the very least, a 2, but probably a 3, and depending on how severe it is, probably even a 4. Which means that since the threshold for him to even say there's elevated embitterment is already over 1.6, you will definitely cross that. It's a very low threshold. And the 2.5 or 2. Was it 2.5? You will definitely cross that if you have severe PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very likely.
You would, and
there are several questions here that are in here essentially doubling the points They're just reformulated. So you wanted to say?
You said what I was gonna say. Honestly, you pretty much summed up what I was gonna say.
Okay. So what you use questionnaires like this usually is how you use them well is you do them in an interview with the patient, and the patient gives you context to the answers so that you can better evaluate what does the patient even mean and feel and go through in relation to what this line even means, which is even more important than any scoring that comes out of it. A bad therapist will just go for whatever points come out of it. A bad therapist may even force, or not force you, but coerce you to answer questions in a specific manner. Like with this one, may try to push you, if he wants to give you the diagnosis because he has already made up his mind, he will try to push you to answer the revenge stories with well, maybe 1 point more than you would want to. So from a 0 to a 1, or from a 1 to a 2, and so on. And that's malpractice. This whole thing is malpractice. A good therapist will just listen to your actual reactions and how you behave and judge from that. Not from this crap. But hey, we'll get into the whole therapy nonsense. This I'll just call him a fraud, is wanting to sell us later on. Last sentence here. There is also a standardized diagnostic interview which asks for the core criteria of PTED. The interviewer has to make a clinical decision as to whether the prevailing emotion is embitterment or some other negative feeling. So that's about feelings for him. 22. Linden, so both of these were made by him. He's the main author. Diagnostic criteria and the standardized diagnostic interview for PTED. So that's something that is different from the scale, the self-rating scale. Oh, so for an actual diagnosis, if you would take the seriously of this thing, you would have to use this thing. Okay. I'll look into that one later. So he's just advertising his own papers here. Prevalence of embitterment. There are preliminary epidemiological data emerging from different continents and referring to different populations. In a web-based survey in Korea of people aged 18 to 35, web-based survey is already questionable, 45.2% reported increased levels of embitterment, which was related to greater exposure to negative life events. That's a lot of people. Like 45% of the 18 to 35-year-old bracket, so the young adults bracket, or young and adult bracket. Almost half of them reported increased levels of embitterment. Yeah, with that low levels of thresholds, yeah, I can believe that. In a nationwide online survey, Yo and Ju, I guess, found that 39.9% of respondents had an elevated PTED score with 1.6 mean and 2.5 above. So he used the inventory that I linked, the German one. And 14.7% a clinical relevant score over 2.5. So this is, if you get half the population, this is what I predicted. If you get half the population to be diagnosed with your crap, then your diagnostic criteria are probably crap, and your self-report scale is probably crap. Because I would say it's unlikely that something so pathological is prevalent in half the fucking population. That just means you can sell your trademarked, patented therapy to half the population. That's your audience. You have the solution. My God. These are only estimates of the true prevalence due to the online sampling procedure. In a quasi-epidemiological survey, in a train, half of the respondents reported having experienced an embitterment-triggering negative life event during recent months. Again, half the population that was tested. And in recent months, that's not even in life. Elevated intensity of embitterment, which leads one to suspect PTED, was found in about 2.5%. So that probably means the what was how did he elevated intensity? How did he define the two? Elevated is over 1.6. Okay. So half the people had a life event, but only 2.5 came above 1.6. That sounds weird. Maybe they just don't want to answer your stuff on a random stranger who's wanting to do some psychological test on a train. Especially if this was this also in Korea? On a train. So it's not saying where this was, so we can look at the reference in 24. Oh, that's him. Linden M. So it's probably done in Germany. There's no link to it. Yeah, you know, if a weird man comes onto the train where I'm on and wants everyone to do some psychological test out of the blue, I may not want to tell him too much about me. Like that's like Scientology coming in and saying, "Hey, let's do a personality test." In psychosomatic patients, 26% showed increased embitterment. These data confirm that embitterment is an emotion which is known to many individuals, and that embitterment with pathological intensity is as frequent as many other mental disorders. It rather sounds like it's more frequent. Persons who are exposed to negative life events are, as expected, at higher risk of experiencing severe embitterment. To embitterment. This has been found in relation to grave changes in life, and now I'm going to barf, such as the German reunification, unemployment, the death of loved ones, severe somatic illnesses, problems at work, legal problems, and emigration.
What?
Regime change causes embitterment that makes you delusional. And the German reunification has lots of elements of betrayal in it because lots of what was promised by the West never happened, and people landed on the streets. It's understandable they were a bit bitter about the promises of the conservatives of West Germany. There were high hopes. Unemployment makes you delusional, querulent. Well, that might be the death of a loved one. This is shit. This is just random life shit. This is exhausting. How long is causes of embitterment? I'd say we do the treatment later.
Yeah.
But if you want, we can power through the causes. Then we have all the stuff in one.
Go ahead.
All right. Recent years, causes of embitterment. Recent years have seen a surge of research and clinical awareness of stress-related disorders like PTSD. Yeah, that's good. Or prolonged grief. The term would be complex grief. Complex grief is something that can occur with complex PTSD, but not necessarily so. Complex grief is when grief is a normal response to losing a loved one, for example. Complex grief does not go away. It just stays with you. And the official definition requires a physical death of someone actually having to have died. But that is not entirely true. And thankfully, I know a couple people working in the field who also agree that that's bollocks, especially with psychological abuse, where alleged or prior people you trusted, friends or people of authority, in authority positions that you trusted, turn out to be monsters. So they lose the mask they're wearing, but only for you, only towards you. And the person you thought you knew for 5, 10, 20 years is gone. That person never existed. It was an illusion. It was the mask. But to your subconscious, it is as if that person died. And not just that, but that person was replaced by a monster. In reality, and you can rationally understand this at the same time, in reality, that person has always been that monster and just wearing that mask. To everyone else, that monster is still wearing the mask because they weren't targeted by the monster. They never saw behind it. But to you, that dear friend that you knew is gone, and worse than gone. And this is something that is extremely hard to cope and process. Yeah, it's a bit of a side thing. Linden writes, just as important, if not even more frequent and more important. What? Just as important and more important, okay, are social and interactional stressors. Yeah, that is what can cause burnout, depression, and PTSD for one. It is the nature of humans to fight with each other, insult and downgrade others, and even take what belongs to others. Whoa.
Wait, what? Hold on.
This is his view about humanity.
Repeat it?
So should I read it again?
Yeah.
It is the nature of humans to fight with each other, insult and downgrade others, and even take what belongs to others. You're all psychopaths.
No.
Yes, you are. He, Mr. Linden, our Lord and Savior, said we are all psychopaths. We are all narcissistic little children. We are all 5 years old. We don't respect each other's boundaries. Nobody is mature. Nobody's an adult. Everybody's like this. It's the nature of humans. And nobody grows past this. So what he says is, this is completely normal.
No.
And I say no. This is what little children that don't have parents, that weren't parented, do.
This may have been true in the past.
Not even then.
Well,
parents were parenting their children.
Well, the whole fighting with one another was mainly because of, hey, you have fertile soil and I want to provide for my people, so I'm going to take it because I need it.
Yeah, but there's desperation in that. There's desperation, and that's not taking it out of spite or taking it out of greed. And he's because he starts with fighting, and then the next thing he says, insulting and denigrating. That's not adult behavior. That is childish behavior. That's immature behavior. It's to provoke war, if you will. That's not going to war, that's provoking war. And take what belongs to others? Yeah, for what reason? If it's just taking what belongs to others is normal, and then you think everyone's a thief and everyone's a narcissist, everyone's a psychopath. And I think here it becomes relevant that we keep in mind this man is a devout Catholic. He believes everybody's a sinner. That would be his ideology. So I haven't heard whether he actually says that or thinks that, but this reads as if he thinks that. So he goes on. This occurs frequently and can hurt and cause pain. Oh, really? This occurs frequently. Not everyone is like that. Prominent intellectual stressors are humiliation, vilification, breach of trust, and injustice. That's behavior espoused by narcissists, borderliners, and psychopaths for the most part. Humiliation, vilification, breach of trust, and injustice. Yeah, he's describing horrible, corrupt people. But that's not the majority. That's really a minority of people. My God. People feel humiliated when they have been downgraded.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
That's a logical thing. Treated disrespectfully. Blamed for no appropriate reason. Yeah, that's slander and gaslighting. Or treated as inferior. Yeah, that's what narcissists do to others. This is all behavior of that narcissists do to others. And that narcissists always feel has been done to them, but actually hasn't. Because they take everything as an attack, that everything that does not support or validate their perfection, their image of perfection about themselves, they take as an attack. So they do this to others and they project that onto others. And Mr. Linden here is projecting on the majority of humanity all of these behaviors. I would guess that he is guilty of all of these things. Vilification is disrespectful behavior, including harassment, incivility, bullying, emotional abuse, aggression, exclusion, and relational victimization. Yeah, wonderful. You're talking about psychological abuse done by gaslighters, the cluster B stuff. People with personality disorders that he says are rather the victims of bad behavior instead of the people causing it. Oh God. A breach of trust and betrayal violate one's belief in the trustworthiness of another person and include when somebody takes inappropriate advantage of someone else if given the opportunity. Again, that's what assholes do. And that's what narcissists and borderliners do and psychopaths do. I know I keep repeating myself. He's describing narcissistic abuse. And that will cause, that can cause a complex PTSD in people if it's repeated and you can't escape it and just keeps on going. And these are people making up shit about you. These are the people who are querulent in their behavior. And of course, you could say delusional, but usually they know they're lying. And so they're lying querulence instead of delusional querulence for the most part. Borderliners can be both, I would say. But he makes it out that the targets of all of this will be the delusional querulence. Fucking hell. These social stresses severely affect the self-esteem of the victim. Yeah. That's one of the goals of this kind of abuse. The presence of observers can amplify their dismay and anguish. That's when they do not prevent the bad behavior, yes, because it makes you feel helpless. And those observers usually tend to defend the perpetrator. And that is what really, really breaks your hope in humanity and life even. In a survey on psychosomatic patients, Bühlau et al. Found in a sample of psychosomatic patients, in a survey on psychosomatic patients, he found in a sample of psychosomatic patients. Dude, how do you write sentences? Fucking hell. Found in a sample of psychosomatic patients that the most frequent and burdensome negative life events were disappointing experiences and injustice, which explains the high prevalence of embitterment. Gaslighting makes you bitter. Stop being bitter. Stop being bitter about the gaslighting. Just roll over and take it up the ass. This is what I mean with this. This will every cult will love this kind of diagnosis as an accusation against victims, against the actual victims.
No. If I'm gaslit, I'm going to be bitter, and I'm going to call them out.
Yeah, and gaslighting makes people justifiably aggressive, because a gaslighter knows he's lying. You cannot convince a gaslighter of the truth because the gaslighter already knows the truth. But you keep trying because you try to be a rational being. The gaslighter wants to destabilize you until you act out. And since you're a good person, that is otherwise stable, you will not immediately go to violent reactions. You will just seem erratic, and you will lose your composure, and maybe you will start also looking the part, and then the people around you will think, oh, something's wrong with you, and your abuser will already have told them, oh, this person is psychotic, making up stuff, and just trying to complain about me. Just to complain about me, it's just making stuff up, is being a delusional querulent. That's why I say this thing, this diagnosis, this delusional querulency, or PTED as he wants to re-question it, is gaslighting itself.
We're going to gaslight you into you believing this.
And that's why it's a Kafka trap. Yeah, that's why it's a Kafka trap. You either accept the diagnosis, then you are the thing, or you defend yourself against the diagnosis, and then it's just you're just delusional and embittered, and it's just a querulent and reject authority. We just diagnosed you with this totally legit thing. If you complain about it, you are delusional. You're just proving that you have it. Man, he's really putting the blame onto the victim.
Yep.
And as we know about narcissistic abuse and gaslighting, turning around the perpetrator-victim narrative is core part of it. So all of these interactional stresses are associated with injustice. It is unjust if someone else takes advantage of a situation, betrays another person, or bosses, harasses, publicly belittles another person. Injustice is an especially severe social stressor. So much is true. All humans hold the belief in a just world. Do you believe that the world is just? Cyrek?
I'm thinking on that. I'd say, at first glance, I would say no, because terrible people get away with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then the time comes that they get eaten by their own dogma.
Yeah, I wish. So I don't believe that the world is just either. Or I neither believe that the world is just. Whatever. You know what I mean.
I thought you meant just. Like,
yeah, the world is not just. Nature just happens. There's no justice in nature. It's just something that happens. In society, the society we have made, it is up to us whether it will be a just society. We have to make that happen. We have to create that. We have to ensure it goes along, and that victims get their justice and perpetrators get their justice. That if someone does something bad, that is persecuted and uncovered, whether and it's uncovered what actually happened, and only then we can even have a chance. Only after uncovering the truth, we have a chance of giving a remotely just verdict. If we don't even want to look at the truth, that's never going to be able to happen. I don't believe that the world is just, and most people I know don't either. People who've had their dealings with the legal system, they are convinced that the world isn't just because the legal system is corrupt or incompetent or both. Negligent. People don't want to work. Oh, it's a complicated case. Let's not look at it. So his whole sentence is, all humans hold the belief in a just world. I think that's just a projection by him. Associated with the demand for justice, be it in general terms or individually. I think this is nonsense. If you have a demand for justice, why do you there's no you don't need a demand for justice if you believe in a just world, because in a just world that just happens. You just get justice. But since the world isn't just, you have to fight for it, and if you don't, you will be screwed over by the people with the biggest elbows. So he's referencing 4 papers here, 57 to 61. Let's just see. My assumption is it will be social justice papers, possibly some of them. Oh, let's see. There's 2. 57 is Lerner, the belief in a just world, a fundamental delusion. I agree that it's a fundamental delusion, but I also don't believe that everybody believes in a just world. That's nonsense. I think children in kindergarten already understand that the world isn't just.
Yeah. Because you don't always get what you want. And
someone else gets what he wants, and someone else punched you, but that other kid isn't reprimanded. Instead, you get accused of making a fuss because you were telling on him. So what's just now? What's justice now? And then the other pouting kid puts on an act and even gets some candy to cheer him up again, and you're still sitting there and you have your bruises. Nobody gives a shit. And that happens more often than you think. So Hafer, Sutton, belief in a just world. Okay. Handbook of Social Justice Theory and Research. Springer Verlag, 2016. Handbook of Social Justice Theory and Research. This is insane.
I don't. Oh, this thing.
It's a book, 513 pages.
I'm not reading that. I've read Marx. I'm not reading that.
Oh, you poor thing.
I've read both Das Kapital and the Communist Handbook.
The manifesto, you mean?
I call it a handbook because it pretty much is.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you exactly what you need to do, so it's a handbook.
The International Society for Justice Research aims to provide a platform for interdisciplinary justice scholars, by which they mean social justice, by which they mean socialism. They try to equate socialism with being justice itself, who are encouraged to present and exchange their ideas. ... Oh my God. Okay, there's a PDF here at ResearchGate. Yeah, that's the thing. Ah, yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, we value your privacy, though we're going to sell your data.
Yeah.
But you're using Opera, so you're good.
Ooh, public full text. Ooh.
Oh, no.
Okay. January 2016. You can find this on ResearchGate.
Download full text PDF right there at the top right.
Bloop.
You're going to be reading through this later, aren't you? Oh, come on. Oh,
no, I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
I was about to say, it wants you to create an account, but no.
Mm-hmm. We'll make a new folder. We'll call it Junk Science. Manfred Schmidt, German, of course. Department of Leadership and Policy in Education, University of Haifa, Israel. People do not understand, especially the right-wing conspiracy nuts, do not understand why socialists, why there are a lot of socialists in Israel, of all places. That's a topic of its own.
Yeah,
because they falsely assume that all Jews are capitalists, and that's just nonsense.
No.
University of Koblenz, Landau. Oh dear. Cohen, USA, Cook, USA. Dedicated to the This handbook is dedicated to the founders of the International Society for Socialism Research, which is replaced justice with socialism. That is Cohen, USA, that's a Jew. Cook, I don't know. Dillehay, no idea. Harden, USA, no idea. Lerner, that sounds like a German root. Mikula, Austria. Montada, Germany, founding president. Tyler, USA. Vermont, the Netherlands. This is fucked up, man. So it's just the table of contents. Past, present, and future of social justice theory and research. Disciplinary approaches. Philosophy of justice, extending liberal justice in space and time. Okay. Sociology of justice, psychology of justice, the economics of justice. Part 2, justice motive. Justice and self-interest. The justice motive, history, theory, and research. Belief in a just world, that's what he's referring to. That is 15 pages. Justice sensitivity, social, cognitive, and motivational processes underlying the justice motive. Part 3, forms of justice. Distributive, procedural, retributive, restorative justice.
Oh, no.
What?
I have a feeling I know what the restorative and retributive justice is. Reparations.
Yeah, probably. And restorative justice can have... The term itself implies something good and something necessary to victims of abuse. Like being paid damages, for example, as the very most basic form. But also by bringing out the truth to restore your reputation. But since we are talking about social justice nonsense here, you're probably right. It will be about reparations. Part 4, spheres of justice. Psychological and social justice in political thought and action. Oh, I thought it was just an idea and there's no political thing going on there. Fuck off. Social justice and the welfare state. Institutions, outcomes, and attitudes in comparative perspective. This might be an interesting inside view, how they see their relationship with the welfare state. Justice in the work setting, justice in the couple and the family, justice and education, justice and environmental sustainability, in equity responses in non-human animals. Okay. Part 5, beyond justice, morality and justice. Social dynamics of legitimacy and justice, archives of social justice research. Justice and culture between relative deprivation and entitlement. A historical analysis of the battle for same-sex marriages in the United States. It's always the last thing in a chapter that is like this, where the headline itself is this what the fuck thing. The others have relatively neutral headlines. Also, dear English speakers, if your next word starts with an H, that doesn't mean you write an, because it's not an historical. The N you add is only added for phonetic reasons, if that's the right word. If the next word, the exact next word after the article A starts with a vowel or something that sounds like a vowel, you pronounce a vowel. History starts with a consonant pronunciation, so it would be a historical analysis, not an historical analysis. You would write an analysis, but the article is here. It doesn't, the extra n doesn't apply because there's historical in between. Learn your fucking grammar. Bloody hell. Ask for it. Reparations. No, the word does not come up. There's just preparations. So the word reparations does not come. Oh, I looked wrong. There's 6 instances. Preparations. Preparation. Here's reparations. In the chapter. Do you have a headline? Yeah, it is in restorative justice.
Fucking knew it.
Look. All authors contributed. Okay, preparations. Reparations. Whatever. Anyway, this might be an interesting PDF for someone else at another time. Back to our Lord and Savior.
Almost done. One more paragraph.
Not even, just half of it. With the demand for justice, be it in general. Oh, wait. We didn't go through all of these. Belief in a just world as a resource of victimized students. Social justice research. Corey and Troisi and Nixa. Tipping the Scales of Justice, the Influence of Victimization on Belief in a Just World, Social Justice Research. And Dalbert, From the Perspective of Justice Psychology, in Linden M, Merker A editors, Embitterment. So he didn't write this, he was just an editor on this one. I would read this. Cool. He's referring social justice research, socialism. He's referring socialism to substantiate his crap. And socialism, as we know, is the very ideology that has a vested interest in shutting up dissidents. Although I am interested in how these papers portray the whole victimization thing, because, well, as we know, the social justice activists are very good at victimizing themselves. So what this PTED thing would more justifiably target, if it was a believable diagnosis, would be the actual social justice activists. Which is why I more and more believe that this whole thing is founded on projection. All right. So, all humans hold to believe in a just world associated with the demand for justice, be it in general terms or individually. This can be understood as an inborn basic belief or cognitive schema, which can already be observed in little children and is indispensable for interactions with other people, the organization of groups, and even societies. And I think we said something to the opposite of what he's just stated. Children already understand that the world is not just, and maybe even that you have to make it. And especially the asshole kids, they probably understand this too, because they just want to have more stuff. And they understand that the bigger their elbows are, the more the other kids will comply to them. That is not just. That is just personally, well, based on the narcissistic belief, little kids are narcissistic, on the belief that, well, what serves me is just. What makes me better is just because I am me and I am good and I am important. It's only later on that kids, or more kids, more and more, understand that, well, we have to respect each other's boundaries if we all want to get along. And that also means that we treat each other respectfully and don't take each other's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone does not fall into this unspoken societal contract, then there will be stress. And that is what has to be repaired. And that is where the word restorative would come into play. So the belief in justice is the basis of social behavior and mediates a feeling of empowerment and controllability of the world. This sounds like absolute nonsense.
That is absolute nonsense.
So what?
No one with a belief in justice believes in controllability of the world. They just believe in righting the wrongs that they have encountered, as long as they are completely justified in doing so.
I think this is what the social justice activists believe. Because they need to control the world. They have this drive to want to control everything. That's where they say everything is political, so that they can have a say in it. It's 59, 63, 64. Yeah, 59 is social justice research. 63, the belief in an unjust world. And here you would write an egoistic delusion, social justice research. Like here, this is the article. Yes, the article refers to the noun, but for reading purposes, you add the N because the next word starts with a vowel or something you pronounce like a vowel. That's why you write an egoistic delusion, not a egoistic delusion, because a egoistic, like two vowels after another, is hard to pronounce. That's why you add the n. Why do English speakers not understand their own fucking language? Have you such bad teachers? And 64, human aggression, that is something else. That's not part of the social justice soup and the self-referential soup. Injustice is experienced as an act of aggression and downgrading, resulting in counter-aggression. No, it doesn't necessarily result in counter-aggression. What the fuck? Some people just take, like, we say something, I think sometimes detrimental in Germany. That is, der Klügere gibt nach, which means the smarter one is backing away. Which in certain situations is the right thing to do. In other situations, it just leaves the field to the corruption and the actual abuse. But that injustice results in counter-aggression. What's the issue?
I don't know.
Is there an issue?
No.
Is this a true statement in the first place?
That's the real question here.
I think his whole definition of injustice is lacking, because it's just an act of aggression and downgrading. What's his definition of aggression? There is so much missing here. Like, if I take away your stuff, is that aggression or downgrading?
It depends on why you took it away.
Is sleeping with your wife aggression or downgrading?
That'd be both. That would be denigration and aggression.
Why is it aggression towards you?
Well, if you're doing it out of malice, then yes, it would be aggression. If
Maybe I don't give a shit about you.
Maybe you don't even know I exist.
Yeah.
So then it's just,
then how is it my fault then?
It's not. It's the woman's fault.
Aha. Well, I guess
I was just having this conversation last
you.
night with somebody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he wound up in that situation where he was in a relationship with a girl for about 2 months, and they were in college together, and he's sitting there in her dorm room, just came out of the shower, didn't have a towel on, and dude comes into the room, stares him down, he stares the dude down, dude walks out, closes the door behind him. My buddy gets dressed. He's like, I don't know what's going on. Proceeds out the door, sees her crying, and the dude is just looking at the girl and like holding his head, like face palming, pretty much. Looks at the other guy, waves him, and my buddy just leaves. Turns out he met up with the dude on campus later. Turns out he had been dating that girl for about 2 years. And just like whenever he walked in, he's like, I know you didn't know me. I know you didn't know I was there. I know you didn't know I existed. But I did. And he's like, how'd you play us like that?
So she had then for 2 months she had 2 relationships at the same time
Yep.
that didn't know of each other.
Yep.
Huh.
But the dude didn't hold any ill will towards my friend because he knew that he didn't exist.
Yeah, that's a very mature reaction of him. Is that girl? What the fuck?
Uh-huh. It's funny that this kind of
And
situation,
she's crying.
this yeah, because she got found out.
Mm-hmm.
But like how you can go on rants about socialism, I can go on rants about polygamy and its evils.
Oh, I can go on about rants of polygamy.
Another time.
Yes. It's a complete scam. Just like all the other things. Like this what is it? Polyamory. The nice named newspeak term for sleeping around.
Well, that's polygamy light.
Yeah. I've from all I've seen of it so far in practice, it's a scam. Anyway, so I disagree with his definition of injustice, like that it's this simple and that it results in counter-aggression. Like he's making an absolute statement. His statement is injustice results in counter-aggression. That is not true. Doesn't automatically do that. Some victims you even of injustice, you even have to prop them up to even start taking action, to start defending themselves. And then maybe this is the first time you're defending yourself against something in your entire life. And the first thing you then get is you're a delusional querulant. And you've been taking shit your entire life. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a shitty thing, because it just makes it worse. So he goes on, victims of injustice strive to restore justice and their self-worth. So far, that's good. If necessary, by taking revenge. So that's not a given. It's not. So revenge isn't an automatic response. If this is accompanied with feelings like there is no way out, which is usually the situation in psychological abuse, degradation and helplessness, embitterment is the natural response. Okay, so everyone with complex PTSD in your eyes is embittered and has PTED. Is a delusional querulant. Because this is the result. This here is the result of prolonged psychological abuse. This is what the prime example, children in the Jehovah's Witnesses who went through years of psychological abuse got through. This is what they got. And you, Mr. Catholic, are telling us that this reaction is on par with delusional querulancy, implying they're over-exaggerating, they're exaggerating, and they're making it up. And his trademarked therapy tries to teach you forgiveness, among other things, which is what the Jehovah's Witnesses force of their victims. And every other case of this in personality cults, you have the same thing. Force you to forgive your abusers, if not even apologize to them. This is evil. This paper, I would say, is in itself evil. And what this guy is trying to do is evil. He goes on. This reaction can be described as a last resort emotion. No, that would be other things. when the person feels cornered and does not see a way out of the situation. That's not an embitterment reaction. When people are cornered, they will lash out. They will either commit suicide or lash out. Not necessarily in a murder-suicide, but they will lash out. It's a U-shaped graph where you have power on one scale and what is it? What was the other thing? I'm sorry, I'm failing.
I don't even remember.
It generally means that people with the most power are the most likely to commit crimes and be corrupt and even be violent because they know they can get away with it. And on the other hand, so that's people who act out, who commit acts of crime, if you will. And then the graph goes down. The less with people with average levels of power, they commit the least amounts of crime. And then you have people with, or maybe it's even violence. Then the graph goes up again with people who have the least amounts of power. I think it's about power abuse, or it's about violence directly, or crime, one of these things. Because these people are so disenfranchised, so helpless and powerless that it doesn't matter to them anymore. They need to do something. So you don't want to make people completely powerless, because that's when they will act up, and then that's how you get revolutions. The individual will fight to get even, but may also seek revenge without a positive goal and even accept their own self-destruction. That would be the murder-suicide, for example. That's the last resort thing that in an objective fashion, objective situation, objective abuse, would be the result of the thought process is quite often, I don't care what happens to me as long as the perpetrator is not a threat to other people anymore. So it's not even just about yourself. It's not about revenge for yourself. But there's even an element about protecting the rest of society from the monster that nobody wants to see as a monster. It's oftentimes other people even acknowledge that it's a monster, but they're too cowardly to act or even stand up for the case because they fear themselves being targeted.
Yep.
And that's what makes you powerless. So it's not just about revenge. There are probably people who are like that, and when it's about people with delusions, that is a problem then. But Mr. Linden here is not checking for that. He just declares you delusional for being embittered. So the individual will this feeling can become an obsessive quality, take over the whole personality, result in many additional symptoms, and impair functional behavior, so that a severe mental disorder results, similar to severe anxiety. As I said, this is something I see mostly with narcissists happening and similar people.
Yeah. The best way to put it is this would only relate to a very small portion of people.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just trying to make it encompass more than that small portion.
Yeah, at best half of society. As we saw before, half of the people measured have at least elevated levels of embitterment. And that's just the ones that probably answered somewhat honestly to these questionable questions. I also find it interesting that the inventory is available in German. Well, he is German, and that tests were made in Korea. Like what? But it's not available in English on call, at least on that website. That I find odd. That's a strange happenstance. So next time we're going to look at the treatment of embitterment, and that he wants to push it into the ICD and DSM, of course, his diagnosis, which is a damn long text. And then we're done with the main paper. Thoughts so far? Because I've mostly said my stuff.
Yeah. I just this thing gives me a headache.
Yeah. I wish Sarah was here again.
Maybe next time.
Yeah. I know it's brain frying.
Oh, it most definitely is.
Yeah.
Like there were a couple parts that my brain was just like, I don't want to think about it. Stop. Don't even.
The view of this guy onto people is just. Does he get out much?
It doesn't seem like it.
This reads like at best the embodiment of an ivory tower paper, but someone who has heard about humans, this weird species, but never actually met any. Or as I said last time, a narcissist with a few epiphanies, but never making it out of narcissism proper. And just keeps projecting. Like, I don't fucking know. What do you think of my tismic interpretations? Do I stop too often or something?
No, you don't stop too often.
Okay.
It is perfect.
Okay.
So I just enjoy your rants a lot.
Okay. I just hope I stay on topic enough for people to follow. And yeah, I hope next time we can do this a little bit earlier for me, because now it is almost 3:30 a.m.
Hopefully next time it'll be a lot earlier in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully. But
yeah.
Tomorrow is game day. And then after that, I have another game to do. And then after that, I do my stream.
Oh, are we playing D&D tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's going to be every 2 weeks. Because
yeah.
I have so many games going on during the week. I'm trying not to burn myself out.
Yeah. You shouldn't get the Dungeon Master fatigue, or even play fatigue.
Yeah.
Like my old group, they wanted to do a weekly thing, and dude, that's too much.
With my group, what we would do is we would play once a month. But that one day, we would play for 28 hours.
Oh, 28. Holy shit.
Yep.
Man, you could almost play Twilight Imperium with that.
Almost.
Almost. Yeah.
But the reason is because we would all find the one day that we all had off. And we would sit in my apartment
Mm-hmm.
and play for the full 28 hours. No interruptions. We would get food delivered to us
Mm-hmm.
and have a whole bunch of snacks and a whole bunch of energy drinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my group was like 10 to 12 hours, but every weekend, and that's exhausting. It's fun at first when you really have the energy, but I couldn't keep up with that. Because, it's always the same day, and yeah, there's maybe some other things you want to do. Just alternate. Sometimes you want to alternate a little, or rather need that. And if we had 2 guys in the group who were the main drivers of the campaign. One was the dungeon master, and they had no other private life. They didn't have any other hobbies. So this was the thing. So not playing on a weekend was just bad for them mentally, I guess. I really encouraged at least one of them to more stuff. There's a board game club in this town, for example. Nope, impossible to bring him to anything that has to do with other people. Like, it was a chore to even get these people together with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's that avoidant. He's that extremely avoidant. But every time I brought a new hobby to him or new people to him, it usually ended almost exclusively. It ended positively for him, and he embraced it and liked it. It's like forcing down candy a child's throat. And then the child goes, "Oh, I actually like that." It was a bit frustrating. Yeah, thing is, I did give a shit about the guy. He was one of my most long-term friends.
Well, if it ended positively.
Yeah, well, in the end, he backstabbed me.
Yeah.
That's kind of...
That, no.
Yeah.
You don't do that to friends.
Yeah. Basically, so what he did was he let himself be manipulated by one of the people who wanted to destroy my life, because I was in the way for some personal luxury. That was all. It was really petty reasons. And so he just did what benefited unknown people he didn't even know, and also didn't care about. The driving factor, I think, was that he prefers any option that allows him to do nothing. So if someone tells him, "Oh, just do nothing, it's okay," then he will take that as justification to neglect a friend, or not defend that friend. It's very strange behavior, if you ask me.
That it is strange behavior.
It's highly avoidant. Wherever it comes from, it doesn't make for a good life, and that doesn't make for good friends either. Anyway, enough life dumping. Bloop. Oh, sorry.
You're
so
good.
Yeah, we did about 3 hours 20.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. I hope people will Well, I know I didn't have the energy and focus as I had on the last one. I still hope that people will be able to take something out of this and have, well, as many viewers and likes as last time. Oh, that really blew me away. Like, nobody knows this channel, and it's almost 50 views and then a dozen likes. Like, what the fuck? That doesn't happen.
People share it around.
Yeah. I hope this helps people somewhat with something.
Hopefully.
And I hope next time when we finish off at least the paper, we can we do it in a time that is a little more comfy for me, at least.
Yes.
And maybe we can get someone else on who is versed in these topics. Maybe Sarah has more time.
Possibly.
Yeah. Anyway, everyone, have a good night, good day, whenever you are.